Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know. Spending time all alone, sending my songs to the phone, dreaming of a better home, while focused on trying to hone this craft. I hope the Bluez let this last.
I don't know if the earth is painted.
That was great sounds of Watts with Outside on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, with my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made. EZ Bluez is in the building. Easy Bluez, you're better with introductions more than me. Who do we have with us today on Behind the Brand?
Ladies and gentlemen, they say that art is 100% subjective, and you have people throughout history that has continued to push the envelope of creation, has taken what is there before and has expanded on it. There are people who continue to push that envelope in the veins of, how I like to say, Uncle Frank, in the veins of Velvet Underground, in the veins of Wendy Williams, not the one that's on TV now, the one that was the punk rock icon. Let's
Have me
be
going
real.
for a second.
I got you. I know there was two. That's why I was about to say, wow. Wendy O. Williams, technically, if we're being 100% honest. You know, where you have, it's not just about the music. It is about the entire experience. Now, I have been into many different places, and I have sat and tried to scour the world, try to understand what those performance aspects are, to help develop and to help grow myself as a human being. One day, I wandered into Cafe 9. I saw a billing for Nirvana. I was like, ooh, Nirvana cover. But no, it was not that. That was the first time I got to see, because when you have the creative fires, you need an amazing ember to burn them. That is where I got to witness the amazingness of Brian Ember, and he's with us today. Is it he, they? How are we dancing with this thing?
He, him is totally cool. Yeah, that works. Thank you for asking, though.
Of course, got you covered, brother. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for everything you do. You are a real staple of the New Haven music scene and really the New England music scene. You take a different avenue and aspect of it. You know, it's not just about trying to crank out those 3-minute tunes so that you can get some radio play and hopefully be able to support things. You really do push that envelope, and I hope I did that for you in the intro. What was that moment for you, you know, where you're like, hey, it's not necessarily about the dollars and cents, it's about the art itself?
God, that's a huge question. It's like you don't softball, do you? First of all, thank you for that intro. That was really, and when you said Cafe 9 and Nirvana, I knew what you were talking about, and I was so excited because that's one of my favorite shows. That would have been like April of 2019, 2018, because 2019 I wound up at Lyric Hall for that show on the anniversary of Kurt Cobain's death. I have a string quartet rock band called the Tet Offensive, and we're actually in the final mixing stages of our first LP. That crossing our fingers is coming out really soon. Hey, Bill Reedy, how you doing? Shout out to my producer. So we covered all of Nevermind cover to cover with a string quartet and drums, and I sang. And I think that was the one where I wound up half naked on the floor. You know, I think that was the one. That was awesome. All right, but like back to the original question, I think I don't know. I haven't always I'm trying not to be a BS artist on this, like, and actually give you a real answer. And like to be honest, like, when you ask the question, I always, like, the first image that comes in my head is like being in the backyard of my house when I was like 6 years old and being like, I want to make movies and I want to do stuff. and trying to get all the kids around my neighborhood to produce a movie with me, and getting really frustrated with everyone that they weren't sticking to a production schedule and they weren't serious about making the movie. And I had no set designers. No one was showing up to the backyard. Like, I was hungry from the moment I came out. I mean, I was like, I didn't know about money and making ends meet and all of that stuff. That was not, when you're a kid, that doesn't factor in. But all I knew is that I would hear the radio, and I would immediately, and of course it's like, I'm in Connecticut in the late 70s, so I'm listening to like Bob Seger and and Billy Joel and stuff. I mean, it was a lot of that end of things. But I mean, in the bathtub, just screaming out, spending all your money on a Cadillac, like, I just, as a toddler, my mom used to remark that I used to like pantomime everything I heard on the radio. So I just wanted to do it. I was just hungry, and I, pursuing it. I would like to say that like money never factored in. I would love to be rich and famous. That'd be fantastic. I feel like I don't know how, because my first priority is always, I need to make this thing that I think is cool. And it's never like, the second step is, okay, how do I get this in people's ears so that they buy it, or they, whatever. I don't, I would love, I need a Colonel Tom myself. I need somebody to sit there and be like, okay, I need my Brian Epstein, my someone to be like, okay, this is great. You're like, half naked on stage with leather pants with a string quartet, but we gotta sell this to people. How are we doing that? So I hope that like broadly answers the gets down to.
Well, it lands on so many different levels, because that's really, this whole aspect, this whole show is about getting to know you as a human being. Because that's, to us, that's the most important thing. Everyone has their own stories, and each story is just as important. And I love that yours does come from, I've been this kind of creative aspect from jump. I've always loved to play. I've always had a great imagination. I also love the fact that you tried to get other 6-year-olds to commit to a production schedule. I have 12-year-old twin boys. I can't get them to commit to like a sleep schedule.
Yeah.
So I got you. Like I fully. It
was hardcore Gen X stuff, though. I have to say, like, I mean, like they, your parents in the late 70s, early 80s released you just into the wild and said, go do stuff and come back for dinner. So that was my do stuff. It was like, well, I'm wandering around the streets right now. I might as well grab some people and try and get some stuff done.
Well, it's interesting too, because coming up from Long Island, we had these wonderful things called sumps, which was just kind of like where everyone's bile and garbage would go to.
Yeah.
But being in that Gen S aspect and being a huge Star Wars fan, as you can tell by that tattoo, that became my Dagobah. So me and the one or two friends that might have been imaginary, might have been real, I'm still not quite sure. We would put on the phenomenal, Star Wars lightsaber battles in the swamp.
Yep.
And that's what I loved about the transition to music. And it's something that I say it all the time. We try to have as much fun as possible, because it's called playing music for a reason. And if you're not having fun, why?
Right.
And you really embody that on so many different levels. And I know from being on both sides of it, I know the struggles that can be when you're trying to maintain that fun, because, there is the 17 people cut me off on the way to the show. My drummer is stuck in traffic. We have to go on in 45 minutes. It takes him 15 minutes to set up, and he is 42 minutes out. I'm done. I'm going to go cry in the bathroom for 35 minutes. How do you maintain the creative spark in those type of situations?
It's hard. It's not like there's an easy answer to that one. I tell my girlfriend all the time, my biggest frustration with being a musician is playing music with other people. because it's so, again, like that's the story about making a movie at 6. I'm still doing that. I'm still like, hey, like my string player friends, come on, let's be in a punk band together. And they're like, what? Okay, yeah, sure. And I'll get like 2 out of 4, but you really need all 4. So then I got to like, scrape around and like, call like 11 different people to find a sub for a gig. And like last summer was crazy because we did a recording session at Firehouse, a 2-day session. The second violinist I usually use was doing a wedding gig. And so he gave me somebody else who I'd never worked with before. So I had to like adapt. And like 3 weeks after that, I wrote a string quartet score for a circus show up in Westville with Air Arts. What are they called? I don't know if you know those folks. They're up in like just on the Westville, Woodbridge border. Yeah. Look for. It's Air Temple Arts. That's what it is. Air Temple Arts.
They just did a thing for Arts and Ideas Festival.
Exactly. So
this past weekend.
Exactly. So last year I got approached to write a string quartet score for them for a circus show, a dramatic circus show about the Donner Party expedition, where all these pioneers went out west to find freedom and riches and peace out in California, and they got lost in the mountains and died, a lot of them, and had to actually succumb to eating one another to survive. And it took a real compassionate take on it. I mean, it really looked at like the kind of the opportunism of the people leading them on the expedition and the human stories and like the history of it. But I'm sitting here with like a 45-minute string quartet score, and I spent 5 or 6 months writing it, and then I couldn't find players to play it, and it was making me crazy. It's like I spent all this time and all this effort, and now I've got to find, like, I'm just like calling person after person saying, hey, are you free for this gig? It doesn't pay great, but it'll be a really rewarding experience, which is like the worst thing you have to say to people. And so it's incredibly frustrating. I'm better at it this year. I kind of like, I got over my frustrations last year about it and decided like, I'm just going to work with different people as much as possible. And then eventually, kind of like those puzzles where the shapes fit the thing, one of these shapes is going to go into the box and like, it's going to work out. And I've kind of found those people now, which is really nice. In fact, I just had rehearsal with a quartet yesterday, doing some, We've got a recording session on July 10th with Lisa Duvall Studios. I don't know if you're familiar with those folks.
Wow. Yes. But we're about to head down there, actually.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. So that's for the listeners, basically they have a studio where they don't like mix and record like a traditional studio. They have like one of those old vinyl lathe machines that just cuts directly to whatever is playing in the room. And so they mic you all up. They hit the power button and then you play, and every record is one of a kind because they're cutting it directly to the lathe as you're performing, and people are getting at those individual things. So, I've done some projects with these folks like Jen Dauphiné on drums and Liz Galorn on guitar. We got I got Brendan Toller on bass from Dust Hat. So it's a good group of people having a lot of fun. But yeah, so personnel's it's a thing. I'm a nonstop visionary, and I don't mean that in a self-complimentary way. I can't stop thinking about ideas. It's like the worst. I keep having ideas and I don't know how to stop. So it's like I need to like compel everyone around me to like get in on it. And so it's a lot of people skills that I sometimes lack, so.
Oh boy. Now that we've officially connected, the rod's going to get weirder for you. I'm very similar. Like I literally, as you're saying this, I'm watching Prestige's face be like, oh no, he met another one. Like I will never sleep again for the next 35 years. It's going to be rough. It's going to be a great ride though. You're going to have fun.
Yeah.
But there's so much truth, and there's so much understanding that needs to go into these type of aspects. You know, I love the fact that, you know, you initially spoke about the producers that are necessary to help sometimes rein in those super creative ideas, you know, and that's one of the wonderful things about having an incredible journalistic partner here. Prestige constantly takes the broom and sweeps me off the ceiling when I'm like, we need to do this, this, and this, and it's going to be fantastic. And he's like, we're broke. I'm like, oh, you're right. We're gonna do what we need to do. You know, but it's necessary. You know, I say it pretty much all the time. A phenomenal producer will take all of this beautiful, chaotic madness and funnel it through a prism and paint this gorgeous rainbow. And that's really what the producer's job is. And there are some bands and there are some artists that are so tight they don't necessarily need that. And then you have the other aspects of it where I am going to throw everything at this possible, and you know what comes out of this cylinder, it will be amazing. Right. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's too far. I've been on the other side of too far. And it's been fun. Not really. It's made zero money. In fact, I think I still owe $35. And that's fine. How do you navigate through without that producer, without that other soundboard?
So from the TED offensive stuff, I mean, I went to music school in New York at Mannes College of Music and learned composition. That's why I was a composition major. So the TED offensive material is like ready to go. I've written it all out. It's like, you know, I pre-wrote it ahead of time. I hand it to the string players. I say, this is your part. And then we rehearse. And the rehearsal isn't a creative session. You know, it's a okay, get this tight, you know, and like, this is ready to go. With the Brian Ember stuff, which is, you know, TED offensive is Brian Ember, but it's just me solo without the string quartet. That came out of a different headspace, and you know, I still wrote a lot of the arrangements, but Bill, God bless him, you know, it was my first time doing studio work in that fashion, you know, where I wasn't like a session player, or I wasn't doing, you know, stuff that was like pre-designed. We were kind of like building as we went, and he helped really loosen me up and unlock me. You know, he has very similar penchants for, you know, electric light orchestra level shenanigans. And, you know, he taught me it was okay. You know, it's okay to be a jackass once in a while, because for posterity, you know, even when I'm listening to very serious stuff, you hear now I hear like as a producer when I'm listening to records, which is probably like done me harm at this point. You know, but I can hear like the little, you know, twinkle here and there, or the weird thing in the background, or the thing that like keeps you moving forward and hooked in. And I'm like, oh, that's how they're doing it. I get it. So it's been a learning experience. I mean, sometimes I give Bill the reins entirely, and I'm like, listen, I just have a box here. I've got some chords. I've got my vocals. I kind of know what's going to go on here. You know, what do you think? And then he kind of takes it. And other times he'll be like, what is this crap? I don't understand what you're doing. We have one song that's coming out. I have two more Brian Ember records in the queue right now. I've got an EP of stuff that didn't make my first record, which is like 5 songs. And then I've got another LP, you know, after that. So for the EP, I had this really weird folk song, you know, that I called Sleepwalkers. And, you know, on its cover, it sounds very like 60s, early 60s rock. It sounds like the Everly Brothers, you know, it sounds like Roy Orbison. And I'm like, and he's like, Brian, it's like, it's more the same, like, you know, you're just doing this. And I'm like, no. Here's where we're going to take this sample I've got of these peepers that I heard out in the woods, and we're going to slow it down, and we're going to put it in here. And here's where I want the witches chanting, and here's how I want the Vikings from the Northmen grunting at me over here. And you know,
here is where I say WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven, myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Raised, Elm City made, EZ Bluez is in the building. This is Behind the Brand with our guest, Brian Ember. And I'm very sorry sorry if I interrupted you. Go
Oh,
right
that's
ahead.
fine. I loved that. I was like, we need Vikings grunting from the Northmen, and you're like, this is WNHH. But now that all this weird stuff is in there, and like, you know, and it's not like weird for weird's sake. I had a cohesive idea. Like, I mean, the whole reason why it sounded like an early '60s song, a lot of the Brian Ember stuff I'm doing on its face sounds derivative. It sounds like, oh, that's like a Sam Cooke song, or like, oh, that's like a this song, or this, you know, like I'm like, you know, I'll even tell people when they come in to do session work, I'm like, okay, what I need is Dave Gilmour here, or what I need is this person, or I need Jeff Buckley over here, but what I'm doing, or what I think I'm doing at least, is I'm taking your memory of the experience of hearing this stuff for the first time, and I'm recontextualizing it. I'm putting it in a new place, and I'm trying to get you to, I want to evoke your memory and your feelings, like the first time you heard that thing, and then put it over here, you know, and do something else. So yeah, I've got like an Everly Brothers tune that turns into like witches and grunting and stuff, and that's because it's haunting. I want you to be haunted. I want the memory of like that early '60s good time, you know, like you know, happy-go-lucky vibe, but there's some dark stuff happening underneath, and that's kind of, you know, the intent. So the production relationship is awesome. I really enjoy working with Bill. You know, I haven't really branched out and worked with anyone else because I've been so satisfied working with Bill. And you know, that's where it's been. But was that a spinach issue, or was that a?
No, that was not a spinach issue.
No, I don't know what just happened. I have no idea what just happened. That was weird. Weirdness.
Yeah.
No, it's super interesting because, you know, having all those experiences, and dealing with, you know, I love that you truly understand, you know, and I mentioned Frank Zappa early on, you know, in the thing, but he literally said all original music's already been done by people in powdered wigs. You know,
right.
All we have is our own different spin on it. And one of my hero movie writers, Kevin Smith, all these stories have already been told. What is original is your point of view.
Yeah.
And that is really, you know, what is there. So you're putting your point of view in here. And if you look at some of those like 60s, you know, songs, you know, I could sit here and say that Dan and Gene song, you know, is one of the most terrifying songs ever.
Right.
When you actually listen to the lyrics.
Like young girl, get out of my mind. My love for you is way out of. That's you know, better run, girl. You're much too young, girl. That's a lyric to a hit song. Like that came out in the '60s, and people were like, "Oh, I'm eating this up." You know, young girl, get out of my mind. That the trumpets are going, and they're all like bopping. My love for you is way out of line. You know, it's like crazy. Who wrote that song? Who thought that was okay? You know, what producer was like, "We're running with this. This is your hit." Dude's like confessing the pedophilia, and we're all like, "Yeah."
And it's so interesting because that theme gets taken up through many different decades.
Yep.
I mean, Skid Row, 18 for Life. You know, She's Only 17. You know, all these different songs that go through. R. Kelly. Okay.
Will Smith. Parents just don't understand.
Yeah. You know, and it's so interesting to see how that becomes so socially acceptable when you put a beat and a melody behind it.
Yeah.
You know, and then you see like some of the horrible things that can come out of that.
Yeah.
You have, you know, Elvis, who, you know,
yeah,
married a 15-year-old.
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Jerry Lewis.
You know, you've got Jimmy Page. You know, I mean, absolutely.
Oh, he's going. We just can't hear you. Yeah. It's happening right now. You're going.
Yeah, we were so close to eviscerating the patriarchy here, and
I'm like, oh, he's getting too crazy again. Cut the feed.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great that you take those things, and you know, even to this day, we get off the weird topic, but you know, a couple of years ago, you had Johnny Cash really do that as well in taking, Nine Inch Nails' Hurt.
Oh yeah,
really making it haunting.
And that's not, that whole series that he did, the American Recordings series, like he did 3 or 4 albums of that, and they're incredible. I mean, like he just takes everything down to its bare bones and kind of just exposes it with just his singing. And there's some stuff in there. I almost like. I mean, he's got some sacred stuff on there that I almost like tried to like get my church to let me sing. Like,
yeah,
Why Me Lord, and a couple of other ones where I'm like, he's just like in it. He's just like thick in it, and it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting because actually the record that was released after he passed was songs from my mother's hymnal, and I remember working at Borders, when he passed and this record came out, and myself and one of the other supervisors would listen to it over again. It was so depressing. So depressing. The customers are like, "Can we listen to something else?" We're like, "No, you can't. You can stop. Shoot. You don't get to talk right now. I'm a cry." But I you also do this incredible aspect of you take these moments of pure emotionality and you add the theatrics, which is that spoonful of sugar type of thing. Was that also by design, or is that just, from what I can tell, it seems to just be who you are as a human?
Yeah. What's I mean, I spent my whole life really trying to be cool, and it was a failure. It was just like it just never worked. I wasn't cool as a little kid. I wasn't cool as a teenager. And it's not even like I was like a stereotypical dork. It wasn't like I was into D&D and Star Wars and stuff, which I was, but like, I'm like, I'm dressing up and I'm like, wandering around. I want to I'm wearing this in the middle of the summer. I mean, like it's just like, and especially like, again, as a Gen Xer, like when grunge came out, I loved it. I mean, I couldn't get enough of like Nirvana and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and stuff, but I could never replicate it. I could never replicate the vibe of it because it just, first of all, I wasn't on heroin, which is, I mean, I'm thankful for, but, also it was just, that's not me. Like, I mean, and it's not to say that I'm like a happy-go-lucky person. And I think theatrics sometimes gets like mixed in with like, happiness or like, over the top, or like, there's a celebratory vibe to theatrical. And that's not necessarily me. Like, my favorite theatrical thing that I've seen in the past like 10 or so years is Lady Gaga, when her early stuff, when she was like, literally doing like dances on crutches with like, lame limbs and stuff, like and you're terrified because you're like, this is terrifying, and it should be. Like, she's doing like happy, awesome dances while she's like jerking herself around and like doing like really creepy stuff, and you're like, whoa, hey, hold on. Like, if I didn't like, if it, she really like has taken that MTV generation music video thing to its like, to its next level, which was great. But like, that's theatrics for me. I mean, I'm trying to like rein it in a little bit because I mean, I do love my feathers and my fur and my weird stuff, and but for me, it's actually really serious. Like, I'm not doing it to make people laugh, and I'm not doing it to be silly. And I am, though, at the same time, a total sucker for a good chuckle. Like, if I can make the audience respond in any way, I'm excited about it. So my February gig, I had a lot of my clothes are actually modified and designed by Todd Lyon over at Fashionista, because we've gotten real tight. And so I had a suit that didn't fit me, thanks COVID. And so I asked her, like, if we take this suit out, can we do it in a fun way? And she's like, it was a burgundy suit. She found some like bright blue Muppet fabric, and she basically took the suit out, and in all the parts where she ripped out or cut out, she filled it with Muppet fabric. So it looked like I was like a Muppet Hulk bursting out of my clothes, But also, the easiest place to let out pants is in the groin, right where the zipper is. So she put an elastic there and then put a giant fur merkin right on my groin. And, you know, I loved it. I was like, this is awesome, right? So I get up on stage and I like, you know, I was buttoned the whole time. And halfway through the set, I unbutton and I reveal my giant merkin, right? And, you know, people are laughing and I'm like, this is awesome. I'm having fun. But like, at the same time, that's not really what I'm about. Like, that's not really what I'm like. I fell kind of, you know, prey to the audience response. And like, you know, I'm not after that. I think the theatrical thing, the Tet Offensive, I was doing it, I think, in the way I intended. Like, you know, I mean, shirtless and leather pants, you know, or with giant capes and things. But like, you know, the music is dark and like, you know, it's and hard. And so I could be hard and dark. But the Brian Ember stuff, I'm trying to learn the right balance, you know, because I am doing this kind of like, you know, homage to like the entire history of like Western rock and roll, and, you know, bring it up to contemporary times. And like, it's not a nostalgia act and it's not a theatrical fun thing. I'm actually lyrically singing about some pretty like vulnerable and real things, like, and it's not like, you know, it's not even like the 60s, like it's not political, it's actually very feelings oriented. It's like, you know, I just had my whole reality ripped apart from me, so I'm going to write 7 songs about that and like all the aspects of it. So it's incredibly sincere stuff, and I'm so, you know, the short answer to your question is I'm learning. I'm trying to figure out the balance. My propensity for being dramatic and being fun and big on stage, you know, I'm learning to balance that with the sincerity of the music that I'm trying to put out.
That's honestly, that is a phenomenal answer, and I will say this. I'm probably going to say this like 19 more times. You need to get out of my head. I'm serious. I'm talking to myself right now. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying because I say it all the time. You know, when I'm on stage, that is my therapeutic release. Mm-hmm. You know, that is how I deal with the rest of it. I just trauma dump for 40 minutes, and yep. You know. And
I've heard your EP.
Oh, you heard the Easy Blues EP? Oh boy.
Oh, not Easy Blues. No, I've heard the Shame Penguin.
Oh, word. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You would be like 4 people that heard the Easy Blues EP. It's fine.
No, but I'm going to look it up now. It's coming up this afternoon.
You know, and you know, when we jump on there, you know, when it's live, because the musicians are so talented behind me, I can go as over the top as possible.
Yeah.
And if that means I wind up on the floor, you know, crying in the fetal position, I'm on the floor crying in the fetal position. That being said, to all the audience members, if I'm on the floor crying in the fetal position, don't help me up. I'll be fine. Let me have my moment laying on the floor. I'm gonna need it. I had to catch my breath. I'm not in the shape I used to be. Give me a minute. That's all I'm asking for. But you know, it happens.
Yeah.
Now, is that also kind of the same type of release for you? Like, I know that after a really good set for me, I need at least 15 minutes to be by myself to reconnect, or people come at me.
This is where we're going to differ, because I get energized by it. It feeds me. It just feeds me. I have to spend, you know, most of my life, most of my day, you know, working a day job. That's often a night job because I'm an orchestra manager. So I have to do things, you know, I got to work nights and weekends, and it's sort of nonstop. And the people I work for are younger than me, so they email me at 11 o'clock at night expecting a response by midnight, you know, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Which I've learned. I'm like, hard boundaries here, guys. I work from this hour to this hour, and that's what I'm going to reply to you. But it's been hard. It's been hard, you know, because I do that, and then I've got 3 teenage boys, you know, who are all like my priority, and you know, I got real life stuff, so I have to constantly tamp down my natural personality. And you know, if I were to tell you, like, you know, who am I more of, Brian Ember or Brian Robinson, I've always been Brian Ember. I just had to put a stage name behind it because I have other stuff that I don't want to interact. Like, that's Brian Robinson, you know, corporate shill is this guy that's not me, like, at all. It's not my personality. I have I understand and respect that I've got to have these boundaries and I've got to set them up. But when I'm on stage, I'm like, oh, finally, I'm here. Like, this is where I would rather be here every night. You know, let just get me here. I could be in a cover band and not care. Like, I would just, for the love of God, please get me on stage and let me play music.
And for the nerds that are at home, the best way I can metaphorically make that is, you know, Brian Robinson and Brian Embers is Clark Kent and Superman. Unlike all.
Oh my God! As soon as he starts talking about Superman, he froze.
I know, right? I know. Wow. Is my freezing breath?
Yo, I swear to God, man, I think Lex Luthor is behind this broadcast. It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy right now. But since we're trying to get Easy
Clark
back,
Kent was the made up person. I was on a good point.
You're on a good point. Oh my goodness, he's going back and forth. Easy, are you still with the family? Easy, are you there? I was
on a good point. I had a great point. Am I there? Am I back?
Audio, yes.
I got you in a freeze frame, but you're back in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, can you hear me audio wise?
I can hear you great. You got great quality. Now you're back with us. Now you're moving. Okay.
All right, so
let's go.
Clark Kent was what Superman thought of Earthlings. And it's very similar. Like, I tell people all the time, Easy is who I am. Dustin is who I've made myself out to be to appease everybody else. You know, and so we really, serious, we're going to go talk one of these days off the interview and we're going to hang out.
Yeah.
I feel like we just had like a Step Brothers moment. Like, are we going to be best friends? You know, and then we'll do an Andre Bocelli cover and it'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, so as you're continuing to go through, how do you maintain, you know, because there's a little bit every once in a while, Easy bleeds into Dustin, Dustin bleeds into Easy.
Right.
And sometimes that can be rough, like working a normal job. And I've just had it with the person working next to me. And I'm like, I'm going to kill you. You know, how do you maintain the Zen balance?
I sneak ways. I just find the space between the moments and give it then. You know, if it's a lunch break interview with you guys, you know, or, you know, if I'm off work at 5, then I can start making music again. And it's gotten easier. I mean, it was really hard when I had little kids. You know, they were only like a year and a half, 2 years apart. So, you know, I had toddlers for like 10 years straight, and it was difficult to like merge all these things and balance them. I'm also, you know, I was raised a New England Catholic, so I'm used to self-punishment. I'm just really accustomed to suffering, and so I'm like, oh, this is just my lot. I'm just gonna deal with it. Like, I just, you know, this sucks right now, but I'm just gonna. This is what it is, you know. And but as the kids have gotten older, and you know, as I'm looking, you know, forward, I'm like, oh, you know, like I've got another 4 or 5 years of this, you know, of really, you know, really just sucking up and putting up with the world before I can maybe take more risks. And so I kind of look forward to that, and I'm kind of building my building blocks now. I'm singing in an opera in August. I'm like the lead in Wagner's Das Rheingold. So like, you know.
And today you're on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, EZ Bluez is in the building with the perfect freeze frame on behind the brand. Brian Ember, continue.
All right. So I'm trying to figure out ways to make music all the time, and maybe get paid for it also. So, you know, the more I play, the more I meet people, the more I know people, the more they know, you know, and, you know, 4 or 5 years down the line, you know, I can start asking around and sort of hunting and pecking for freelance work and getting it more steadily. I mean, when I had little kids, I started children's music wind quintet. I wrote a bunch of songs about dinosaurs and went through like the nursery school circuit in the Peabody Museum. and sang songs as the Cretaceous Quintet, and I wrote ridiculous songs about dinosaurs and their foibles. I find a way. I got really lucky with my as a composer. The former music director there, asked me 3 times to write orchestra music for the orchestra that he premiered. So I got to write, short form orchestra pieces and kind of let off some steam that way. It happens. It just, I appreciate the moments when I can and look forward to doing it more. But I am also getting older, so I haven't gotten tired yet. But I'm waiting for my body to stop. I'm waiting for my body to be like, cut this out. You're just too much. You have to go to sleep now.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't necessarily understand that, or will never understand that when you have that extra fire that drives you past human, what your human body should be able to go through. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, when you hit that wall hurts. I hit that wall recently. Well, it wasn't fun. Was not fun.
Yeah.
But there's another side of that as well, because as you continue to grow and then you start to take better care of yourself, your instrument, which is your entire body, winds up being better and perfected. And it's a beautiful thing to see and to move forward through. But as you've spoken a little bit about the next level, the next step. And
you spoke a little bit about the next step, what you're trying to do. I think that's what Easy's trying to tell you, Brian. What are your next steps?
One of my favorite composers, Bosick, is one of being honest.
Oh, so we lost you a little bit, Dustin.
Easy. You got the first part of your sentence when it said next step, and it just got cut off. You are back. Okay. Back in full motion. Is just that first part of the sentence said your next step, then bam, you just got cut off.
What is the next steps? And what I really wanted to say was I'm so excited that you're doing Wagner. Wagner is one of my favorite composers, one of my favorite operatic composers. Bosick is one of the best I've heard in a very long time. And actually the story behind it is so true to the reality we live in today. It's terrifying. But the next evolution point is opera going to be a full-time thing for you? Is this something you're putting your toe in the water for?
I don't know. I'm literally like the spaghetti in the pot right now. I'm just throwing myself at things and seeing what sticks. This summer, I guess I got the Lise Duval session on July 10th. So we're doing that. The following week, I've got a Cafe 9 show, and I hired a full band for that. Dean Falcone and Rich Dart, who's playing drums for all the remaining monkeys, and Brian Stevens and Rick Mealy. So I've got a great band for that set. The following Thursday, I'm at Best Video on the 21st. I did it for the Great Give, which is a big fundraiser where they make a lot of their money for the year. I promised anybody who gave me $100 for the Great Give that I would write a song about any movie they chose. So I'm gonna perform those songs at that set. and then August is Das Rheingold, and I'm Alberich. I'm the evil dwarf who steals the gold and makes a ring out of it. And I'm amazed. I'm not I'm classically trained and I have a lot of background, but classical music is a huge field and there's a lot of repertoire out there. So I wasn't a big Wagner guy. I had no idea what I was getting into. And it's Lord of the Rings with singing is what it is. It's really, my character literally steals gold out of a river, makes a ring out of it, puts it on, turns invisible, compels everybody to do his bidding, and then the ring turns out to be really evil, and it gets stolen from him, and then the rest of the ring cycle is all of the mishaps that occur as a result of the curse of this ring. So this is the kind of the prequel to the whole ring cycle, and there's a lot of German to learn here, and there's a lot of singing. I'm trying to get all under my belt by the end of August, which I'm underway, but I love doing it. So if I keep getting hired to sing, yeah, I will absolutely learn other operas in order to like keep doing it, because it's fantastic. I just got Todd Lyon from Fashionista agreed to make my costumes for the event. So it's up in Brattleboro, Vermont. And then, from there, I mean, unfortunately, after August, September hits and the academic year hits and I start orchestra managing again. So it kind of shuts me down for another 9 months. And then that's when I begin my like sort of planning for the next summer. So I just keep doing that, unless other things compel me. But, right now I want to get my Ted Offensive record out and in people's ears. And then I've got 2 Brian Ember records that are like, they're all written in like, one's 80% done and one's about 60% done. And, want to get those out as well. I'd love to start sort of formalizing some of the stuff that I'm doing and, maybe even find a good relationship with a manager or somebody to start taking all this content. I hate the word content. It's the worst word ever, but I have records and I have an act and I have a lot of acts. So it'd be great to be able to, find somebody who can, turn that into gigs and turn that into money. Because like you had expressed before, Easy, the personnel management and all those aspects of things are really hard it's a lot of time. If I had another person on the side helping me with those things, it would allow me probably to gig more during the academic year. I wouldn't have to worry so much about I don't have to build everything from scratch all the time, which would be nice. If I knew I was doing a gig and it was going to pay me $1,000, then I could very easily find a band. If it's not like, we're taking a cut of the door, and I assure you more than 10 people will be there. Like that's what you get. It's miserable, but, you do those cause you love them. But I can only do those in the summer when I have the time to pull everything together.
No, it's so super interesting, and also I want to give a shout out to your acting ability. You're playing a dwarf. You are not a small man.
That's been the joke, I mean, I'm a baritone, which helps, but we don't. They don't say in the opera his height. There's no like height requirement, right? And honestly, some of the things we're doing costume wise will just make me look odd. And that's kind of the point. You had kind of alluded to this, Easy, before about taking old stuff and making it new, and it's all powdered wig music from the 1700s. I've never looked at this opera before, and the production team up in Brattleboro, Tundi Productions is their name, and they've been great about saying, "Hey, what's your take on this? What's your take on this character?" And Alberic has, I don't know the tradition, but traditionally he's a toady, guy, hitting on Rhine maidens and failing and doing terrible things and whipping people and hurting them and everything. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, well, wait a minute. This guy sounds like a kind of a loner who didn't know, the first scene he's hitting on these 3 Rhine maidens who are guarding the gold, this magic gold. And they're teasing him and they're making fun of him, but they don't outright reject him. They keep him going and they're having fun. And I was like, oh God, Albrecht doesn't understand that they're flirting like mean girls. Like they're flirting like a bunch of 16-year-old mean girls, and he doesn't understand that. And he's taking it all seriously. And I was like, I told everybody, I'm like, I think Albrecht's an incel. I think he's literally this basement dweller who like got out of his basement, met 3 hot girls, and then didn't know how to flirt with them, felt entitled to their affections, and when they didn't give it to him, he stole their stuff and like ran off with it. It's like, this is an incel. This is a guy who wants to burn it all down because he didn't get what he thought he deserved. And they loved it. They're like, oh my gosh, like, they hadn't seen it that way. And it was kind of like a great conversation we had. So bringing this stuff up to date.
Speaking of great conversations, Brian, unfortunately, I just have to stop it right now. We have to play your music.
Oh,
the new chassis. So just please introduce the track before we go off on the air for Behind the Brand. All right.
Oh, for sure. And thank you so much, both of you, for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
It's been a great time.
A lot of fun talking, and you're asking some great questions here that require maybe more hours.
We got to get you back on again. Yeah.
So this track is called Our Friends Don't Know, right? And this came out. Oh, that's some fantastic. Wow, look at that. That's a good picture.
Harry does his stuff.
Yeah, wow, does he ever? Thanks, Harry. That's fantastic. So this is Our Friends Don't Know. It's the second track off of my first solo record called The New Chastity, which you can find anywhere out there. It's probably the most theatrical Muppet-like song I have on the record. Other songs are much more serious. But this is a perfect example of talking about some really serious stuff while being over the top and silly, because I'm talking about the end of a relationship where, things have gotten so bad that we're now, I'm getting, slapped in the face a lot, literally, and it's just not working anymore. This is Our Friends Don't Know off of the first record, The New Chastity.
Brian, thank you so much for joining us on WNHH 103.5.
Thanks, everybody.
Everybody's got a little something going on in their lives that nobody knows about. Everybody's got a little something going on in their lives that nobody knows about. With melodies, sometimes when she yells at me, I just pretend to go to sleep. While she's flailing her arms and screams, slapping me and throwing things, I turn inside and start to sing. Everybody's got a little something going on in their lives that nobody knows about. Everybody's got a little something going on in their lives that nobody knows about.